revolutionary mullahs in Pakistan urging the peasants to seize property in the Swat Valley gave rise to an article in the New York Times of August 2, 2009, that also referred to the wider organizations of Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Sadr Army of Iraq being involved in social justice, a euphemism for the socialist agenda. Examples abound of the communist terrorists of the 1960s and 70s becoming Muslim, Christian, and Jewish clerics, selling Marxism disguised in religious clothing. Most, however, became Muslims. In the United States, H. Rap Brown of the Communist Black Panthers and Stokely Carmichael of Burn Baby Burn fame became Islamic religious leaders. Likewise in Europe, the most famous communist terrorist, Carlos the Jackal, became a leading author of radical Islam. These men and many more did not change their aims. They only changed their clothes. As a result of the idea that terror is simply Islamic, the eyes of America have been focused on the wrong enemy. Nonetheless, to be successful, the terrorists must have allies within the government they are trying to change. This has to be true in America, or we must have the dumbest people in the world running, for instance, Homeland Security. I have witnessed personally too many instances of security that makes no sense if, 1, the problem is Islamic, and 2, terrorism is a real threat. We could double the length of this DVD just discussing personal experiences where Muslims, foreign-born Russians, and others are on board American aircraft as cleaners, baggage and food handlers, even aircraft flight personnel. We are talking about American airports and companies. We have also been told by security personnel that these people are not screened as much as the passengers. Is this stupidity or design? Security at American centers of transportation seems to be aimed more at the citizen traveler than at the people employed, who could well be a danger to the traveler. Exercises carried out by the Coast Guard and others at the order of Homeland Security are quite intimidating, aimed at small pleasure craft, carrying families on outings, speeding up to them in small, fast boats, armed with machine guns and staring them down. This is not hearsay. This is something that I have witnessed. Sadly, we even witness good people applauding the exercise of the orders of Homeland Security, violating the Constitution of the United States for security's sake. We have to keep in mind that government rarely relinquishes power. If the purpose of terrorism is to alter the face of America into a less free country, the goal of Osama bin Laden, then the Patriot Act and how it was passed takes on a greater significance. For the over 340-page Patriot Act had already been written beforehand, then submitted to the Congress within hours of 9/11 and passed without a single congressman reading it in its entirety. Many did not even see it prior to the vote. Is the American landscape being altered? Any traveler on an airline knows that it is. Violations of our Bill of Rights are now a constant occurrence in terminals and on any mode of public transportation. Americans, as their counterparts in other countries have done, are allowing their freedoms to disappear in the face of a national emergency. Benjamin Franklin once admonished the American people by saying, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty or safety." The face of America is changing. A decade ago, prior to 9/11, the American people would never have tolerated what is going on today in the name of the war on terror. In addition to changing the face of America, again, the goal that Osama bin Laden had in mind, on the international level, there is a push to merge our country into something called the New World Order. Their words, not mine. While the war on terror is not the only excuse being used to establish the New World Order, it is an important part of the initiatives. Such luminaries as diverse as Henry Kissinger, George Bush the Elder, Gorbachev, and China News, a communist Chinese newspaper, have called for the New World Order in the name of establishing peace and the war on terror. Interestingly, Kissinger has been named to a Vladimir Putin-established Russian committee to fight terrorism, supposedly a joint Russian and American citizens group. Kissinger is the co-chair as head of the American section. Yevgeny Primakov, former head of the KGB, who at one time personally ran the communist Islamic terrorists, is the Russian co-chair. It is the official policy of the United States to establish a new world order in the name of providing security. The National Security Strategy of the United States, signed by President George H.W. Bush, so states. Since then, we have also seen the Sun establish the Security and Prosperity Partnership to merge our country with Canada and Mexico in the name of providing security. There is more to the war on terror than meets the eye. We are told that Russia is our ally in the war on terror. They were also our ally in World War II. When the war was over, Russia had communized Central Europe and most of Asia as a result, some ally. We have shown herein only a small portion of the tip of the iceberg of evidence that exists, demonstrating that Islamic terror is in reality the old communist terror dressed up to look Muslim. The hatred being bred by the idea that the terror emanates from Islam rather than Russia could well be used to incite our people into an even larger conflict overseas than we have now, and providing the basis for entangling alliances designed to create a new world order. Are there problems concerning the religion of Islam and the American system of government? The answer is obvious if one discusses the separation of church and state. In a radical Islamic state, the church head is the state, as in Iran. While such Ayatollahs or imams may appear to be strictly Muslim, there is scant difference between their rule over free speech, freedom of religion, etc., than a Russian communist commissar. In the end, it's power, regardless of the label. And the state militia in such regimes is usually called the Revolutionary Guard. Let us leave you with one thought. If the terrorism we see is Islamic, why therefore are the vast bulk of terrorist acts against Muslims? The bomber may be Muslim, being used by his handlers, but the higher you go in the terrorist organization, the less it is Islamic and the more it is again seeking power. The Muslim population themselves will be just as much the victims of radical Islam as anyone else, more so in fact. The Muslim world was not ruled by imams for centuries. So what is behind the move for radical religious leaders to rule Islam? Systematic terror on the Muslim people is designed to replace what they have with a completely totalitarian and centralized system that will look a lot like the old Soviet Union. So-called Islamic terror has more behind it than the simplistic idea of Islamic terror only. It is a scheme to impose totalitarianism over the Muslim world and to eliminate any pretext of following our Bill of Rights in this country. We again have only told you a very small part of the story. We have written a large number of articles documenting further the basic theme of this DVD. Please go to www.exposingterrorism.com for more information. Once you've informed yourself, please inform your congressman and ask him to adhere to the Constitution, no matter what the temptation may be to provide a little temporary security. They have, after all, taken an oath to uphold the Constitution. We need to make Congress understand who the real enemy is. Your help in this quest is greatly needed.